What's going on, friends? Every rider wants more from their Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and we're not just talking about the engine here, we're also talking about the drivetrain. Most Harley riders want another gear in the transmission. While theoretically this sounds like a really good thing to do, depending on your setup, and when you look into it a little bit harder, this may not necessarily be the best idea if you don't have the correct setup on your motorcycle to do this. For years, Harley-Davidsons ran 4-speed transmissions. They came out with a 5-speed and then later on a 6-speed transmission. Now the 6-speed transmission brought some issues with it of its own, but that wasn't really the transmission's fault in my opinion, but total topic for another video. So the biggest question about transmissions that always comes up is guys that have a twin cam 88 with a 5-speed transmission. Biggest question I always get is, can I buy a 6-speed transmission and directly swap it out with my 5-speed? I mean, why wouldn't you? 6-speed transmissions are all over the place, and you can pretty much get one heck of a deal when it comes to a takeoff 6-speed transmission off a 2007 or newer motorcycle. So the big question is, can you take that 6-speed transmission and bolt it up to a bike originally equipped with a 5-speed transmission? Well, you're probably not going to like the answer to that question. Guys, before we get too much further into the video today, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, while there are a lot of 6-speed transmissions out there and a lot of great deals on them, sadly these will not bolt up to a bike that is originally equipped with a 5-speed transmission, and there's several reasons for this. Number one reason is the 5-speed had all external oil lines. The 6-speed, it was a redesign where they took all the oil lines, they were routed internally, and they actually made up to the engine, and it's sandwiched together with a gasket in between so you're not puking oil everywhere, and they eliminated all the exterior oil lines. So that's the first issue you have with trying to make a 6-speed transmission to an originally equipped 5-speed bike. The other issue that you have is that basically the twin cam 88s, they had different inner and outer primary covers, which pretty much just makes it virtually impossible for these newer transmissions to bolt directly up to the original engine in an 88. Now I know what you're likely thinking now. Can I pull the gear set out of a 6-speed transmission and just slide it directly into my 5-speed transmission case? You guys are really not going to like me in this video because I'm full of bad news in it, but I promise later on in the video I do have some good news. Well, the truth is that the 6-speed gear set will not fit into a 5-speed transmission case. The 6-speed transmission is just simply a different animal. It's got longer shafts, it's got a larger main bearing, and a double row output bearing. Now, like I mentioned, there is some good news, but it's going to be later in the video if you really absolutely want to add an extra gear to your transmission. Now, literally depending on who you talk to, the 6-speed transmission may not be something that you're really truly interested in, depending on how and where you ride your motorcycle and also how your bike is set up. This is especially true if you're going to spend the big bucks to either buy a 6-speed transmission or convert your 5-speed over, or if you want to get even wilder, if you have a 6-speed transmission, yes, you can add another gear to a 6-speed transmission. So I'm going to use a 5-speed Sportster for example. A lot of people would say, man, I just need an extra gear on my 1200 Sportster. I'm running like 3,400 RPM at 70 miles an hour. Well, there's a reason for this. Basically what Harley-Davidson has done at that speed, at that RPM, that keeps you right there on the edge of where that engine really makes its power. That is so you can roll it on 9 times out of 10 and be into the torque, into the horsepower without having to downshift. Now, if you put a 6 gear in that and say you drop from 3,400 to 2,600 RPM, yeah, you're going to have better fuel mileage, lower RPM running down the road at that speed, but you're also going to find that the engine's a little bit sluggish. Trying to roll it on, you're going to have to downshift 1, maybe even 2 gears to actually make a pass. So unless you're just flat out riding across a desolate, lonely highway, that's about the only time a 6-speed transmission would really work, because you're taking that bike out of where it was designed to run, it right on the edge of where it builds its power and torque. The same principle goes for the 5-speed big twins like the Evo Big Twin and also the Twin Cam 88. You pretty much have the same effect on those engines as well. For an Evo or a Twin Cam 88, just say you got some pipes, air cleaner, jet kit, or a tune in one of these, that's a pretty big stretch for it to pull a 6th gear. 6th gear is probably going to be way too low of an RPM on those engines. They're simply just not going to make enough power and torque at 65, 70 miles an hour to really handle that 6th gear. Yeah, that 6th gear would be absolutely ideal on an Evo or a Twin Cam 88 if you like to run 80 miles an hour pretty much all day long, every day, everywhere you go, because otherwise you're probably really not going to need or use that 6th gear very much. Now, if you have a really hot Evo or Twin Cam 88 where you got a big cam in it, maybe you got a big bore, maybe some head work, you're really putting down some power, that engine is going to make the horsepower and torque on top to comfortably drop that RPM in the 6th gear at your highway speed and actually carry it through and not be bogging down the engine. Now, as I mentioned, depending on who you talk to when it comes to the 6-speed transmission, there's a lot of guys that came from 5 speeds to 6 speeds that prefer the 5-speed. When the Twin Cam 96 came out with the 6-speed transmission, a lot of people felt that it felt really sluggish and underpowered at 65, 70 mile an hour at highway speed in 6th gear. Now, with the Twin Cam 103s and obviously with the Milwaukee 8s, the 6-speed transmission works really well on these bikes because you have enough horsepower and torque at the lower RPMs, at the higher speeds, when you're pulling that 6th gear, so that way those bikes don't really feel a little sluggish, and they don't feel like you're lugging the motor when you're in 6th gear running down the road at 70 miles an hour down the highway. So with that in mind, considering that a 96 can feel sluggish with a 6-speed transmission, would you really want to spend the money to do that on basically a mildly modified Evolution engine or a Twin Cam 88, because you're literally running less horsepower and torque than the 96? Now, as I mentioned, unless you got a really hopped up 88 or Evo, it may not be worth it. So if you want to convert a 5-speed over to a 6-speed, you do have a couple of options out there, and your first option is going to be Screamin' Eagle. Yeah, I know. Harley-Davidson does make a 6-speed conversion gear set for the 5-speed gear transmission case. All you got to do is swap the gear set. Yes, you will have to do a little modification, but there is a template. You just got to follow the template, grind away what you need to, and it'll bolt right in, no problem. Now, if you want to get just the 6-speed gear set conversion, that's going to run you about $2,600. If you don't want to grind on your case, you'd rather put your 5-speed transmission back, case for whatever, sell it, or if you don't like it, put it back in and sell your 6-speed, you can get a complete 6-speed transmission that is actually made for your 88 and for your Big Twin Evo. Albeit, obviously, since you're getting a full transmission, you're looking at about $3,400. If you're not a Screamin' Eagle fan, there is the absolute best in the business when it comes to Harley-Davidson drivetrain, and that is Baker drivetrain. Baker's products are a little bit more expensive. Well, I'm scratch that. They're a lot more expensive. Just a conversion gear set for your Evo or your Twin Cam 88 to go to a 6-speed, it's going to run you about $3,200. But from Baker, it's worth every penny. Now, if you don't really feel like messing with grinding on your case, and the aforementioned, if you want to sell your 5-speed transmission or the 6-speed transmission, Baker does offer a complete transmission set, but this is going to set you back quite a bit. Baker's complete transmission for a 6-speed is going to set you back about $4,400. Now, we are way off the price of the eBay special 6-speed transmissions, but this is about the only way and the best way to get your 5-speed converted over to a 6-speed transmission. Now, if you have a 2007 or newer Harley-Davidson with a 6-speed transmission and you're feeling really froggy and you feel like you've got the power that you could actually pull this down the highway, Baker Drivetrain even offers a 7-speed transmission. We're basically turning your Harley-Davidson transmission into a semi-truck without a high-low. You're going to have a 7th gear. Now, to add a 7th gear, you can get a gear set for about $3,700, and if you want a complete transmission, you're going to be looking at just under about $5,000. But with a 7th gear, you better have enough power to pull it, because if you need to go to pass somebody, you could potentially be having to downshift 2 to 3 gears. So, guys, just a few things to consider, because a lot of people want to take their 5-speed and make it a 6-speed. You really want to make sure that your bike has enough power to not be bogging and feeling really sluggish and lugging at 65, 70 mile an hour highway speeds when you hit that 6th gear. Would it be nice to have it if you like to run 80, 85, hit 6th gear and drop the RPMs? Absolutely. But not all of us do that. A lot of us are just kind of podunking along at 65, 70. So guys, I hope I gave you some really good points to think about before you throw down your hard-earned money when it comes to getting your 5-speed converted over. And I hope so. I really hope that I saved you from ordering an eBay special and then basically having a 6-speed transmission that you can't really use because it's not going to fit onto your original 5-speed. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Well, guys, until next week, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.